Good evening, everyone. I'm Hector Gunther, Chair of the Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee. And tonight is our April 14th, 2025 meeting of the full committee. We meet every other week throughout the year, except for July and August, when we only meet once in each of those months. According to state law, I should ask whether anyone is taping this meeting, and if so, to make yourself known. And if not, Chris Lozon, can you call the roll, please?
Yes. Hector.
Yes.
Chuck.
Yes.
Lillian.
Here,
Jim.
he's muted.
He's on mute. I know he's here. Tom.
Here.
Jeremy.
Here.
Chris King.
Here.
And I am here.
I'm here as well. Sorry.
Thank you. All right. First item on the agenda is to solicit public comment. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to comment? Hearing none, the next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes for March 24th. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Great. Any comments on the minutes?
Nope.
My comments were that they were very well done. Thank you, Teresa. And with that, Chris, can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Excuse me. Can I have
I'll
a
call the roll? Yeah.
Right, please call the roll. Yeah.
Hector.
Yes.
Chuck.
Yes.
Lillian.
Yes,
Jim.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Chris King.
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
Great. All right. Next item on the agenda is to hear from Dan Santos and team on the discussion of the proposed public works operating budget for fiscal 2026. So Dan, the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening, everyone. We can proceed as you desire, but I'm prepared to walk through the decision packages and operating capital requests that we've made for fiscal year 26. As you all know, it's a level funded budget with the addition of, if approved, certain items for a variety of reasons that may include employment contracts that have escalators, maintenance contracts that have escalators, and then other operating expenses that have gone up or use more than they have in the past, or utility costs have gone up, etc. So that sounds good to you. I'll move through these packages, of which there are about, I don't know, 25 or 30. All good to go?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would invite anybody on the operating budget subcommittee to opine on what level of detail you'd like Dan to adhere to. Is there a chair of the operating budget subcommittee?
No, there is none because we're all independent and we're working on our own stuff.
All right, so it's a collaborative effort, truly.
Right.
All right. Well, any member of the committee, if you have a point of view on what you want Dan to focus on or whatever, please speak up. Otherwise, Dan, go right ahead.
Okay, and I am, you mentioned my team. My team is a team of one tonight. So the first item is in this, I'm going in the order of the spreadsheet that you probably have that came from the finance director. specific to public works projects. So there are some I'm skipping. First one I have is the HYCC mechanical operating capital. And this is $420,000. As this is operating capital, it's not automatically re-upped like a level funded budget, but we are requested to seek this item every year. And there are a number of operating capital items throughout the public works budget. This is the first one, and this is for the Hyannis Youth and Community Center. And primarily what it does is it allows us to replace failed or inefficient equipment. This building, as you can imagine, is heavy in mechanical equipment, and that includes HVAC, refrigerant. There's an ammonia system for the ice making, dehumidification, various utility systems, air handlers, and heating systems, ductless mini splits, electric wall heaters, heat pumps. So this covers our annual work to replace as necessary, most of which is with, these are things that are done with our employees for the labor. We have other contracts for other items, which we'll talk about. Any questions? Next one is the Hyannis Youth and Community Center Preventive Maintenance Agreements. And this is for looking for a $10,000 increase. And that covers cost increases that we anticipate that address our preventive maintenance for our refrigeration plant equipment. We have a very complicated and proprietary dehumidification units because working with ice generates lots of moisture, and we need to make sure that we monitor dehumidification. We've had issues in the past with those systems failing and creating some serious mold problems that we've had to expend funds to ameliorate. And that's primarily it. We have chillers for the air conditioning systems and control systems, and they also are the subject of these maintenance agreements. So again, that's a $10,000 increase. What I don't have here is the amount that's being increased. And I don't know if you want to know that, Mark may have that. But I don't have that. I just have the increases we're looking for. So moving on further with the HYCC, which is an enterprise account, by the by. And this is general building supplies increases, looking for a $5,000 increase. And this is just general building supplies for custodial, restrooms, just things like that. It's just things we use in our everyday operation at the HYCC, and prices have gone up, as you'll see throughout this budget and other budgets in other departments. We are aware of some increases and anticipating others. Next item is for the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Program. We have two items in this section of our budget. The first one is for personnel, and we are seeking an increase of $864,150 for a variety of personnel in the program. These would be working in the Public Works Department in the engineering section, includes project managers, project engineers, inspectors, construction inspectors, both 1 and 2. We have different levels, and a financial coordinator. These are positions that have been proposed when we first completed the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan in 2021, and we have been working year after year to build the staff as we get appropriations from the capital program, and these positions are necessary for us to implement that program.
How many positions altogether, Dan?
Let's see. I think it's 8 positions.
You anticipate being able to fill all of those, or do you think there's going to be a problem filling them?
It's hard to say. We've had problems filling positions, although it's getting better. And some of them are more difficult than others. Engineers are kind of tough. So we've been hiring at a lower, for example, a project manager one or a project engineer one, and we're training them. And then as they become more proficient, they can move into the project manager two. So there is some cost savings there. And the finance director has allowed us flexibility in filling positions. If we can fill a position that perhaps was addressed in a different year, but we will save one because we can get a person. Um, Going out to contract or consultants is not any better. They're having just as hard a problem. And we decided long ago that it was much more cost effective for the town to do this work in-house. In fact, we've saved millions of dollars doing it this way with a better product that's and more flexible in terms of responding to needs.
Okay.
Let me just interject here. Last year you were talking about, because we had so many problems recruiting applicants, you were offering internships and on-the-job training. Are you still doing that?
Absolutely. We have a very robust internship program with students with bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, foreign students, current college students, and we have hired permanently a number of people that have served as interns and really gotten some very excellent employees that way.
Is that working out well?
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
No complaints at all. It's a win-win situation, honestly. We get great people at a fair price and they get a lot of really amazing training because of the work we're doing it's state of the art. It's big. It's exciting for engineers if you're into that kind of thing. You're all financial people, so
I'd imagine with 8 new staff, just as a department, you would benefit more. I mean, that's 8 other eyes on different projects, or are they solely looking at CWMP as their focus?
yeah, these are specific to CWMP. I have other personnel that address non-CWP issues, CWMP issues.
So you think with the breadth of the projects looking ahead, like for a full year, that's really gonna be their primary focus? Because I'm thinking, like, as a town, it also seems great that you have these experts in these fields that I wonder they probably benefit your department as a whole.
Yeah, certainly. If something comes up that we need some advice on a particularly technical issue, they're certainly available and part of the department to help out with that. The second request for the CWMP program is for vehicles, primarily with our inspectors. Their office is their vehicle. They expend, I never see them. They spend 8 or 10 hours a day in the field overseeing contracts, and they need vehicles for that. So we have a request for 3 new vehicles this year. These are pickup trucks, heavy duty, 3/4 ton pickup trucks that we buy with the ability to plow. So we put them to dual use in the winter. During emergencies, they are able to plow.
Dan, Betty Luck here. Can I ask you, just on your previous subject, based on what you talked about at the last town council meeting with the grant money, when you put out these advertisements for these engineers, are you asking for any kind of expertise in innovative and alternative systems? Are we going to have some in-house capacity to really look at that too? Can these engineers look at both, or do you have any thoughts in that direction?
Yeah, our engineers that we have can look at both there, and the people that we have come from consulting firms and have experience with innovative and alternative systems. And honestly, it's not very complex from an engineering perspective. to do that. And it really is just in reviewing those systems as potentially being implemented as part of our CWMP, but ultimately the design and implementation of those is effectively a private property issue. So the actual engineering of those systems would be done by private engineers. Move into Water Pollution Control Division, where we have an operating capital budget line item of $100,000, similar to the HYCC and to Structures and Grounds. This allows us to replace large pieces of equipment and other critical components of our treatment and collection system. So pumps, valves, generators, things like that. And last year, in fact, we have 2 wind turbines. One of them had some significant issues, and so we use this money to repair that. And that's $100,000, as I mentioned. Next item is Stewart's Creek grinder pump purchases. Stewart's Creek project was completed in around 2011 or so, and some of the homes have to be served by grinder pumps, individual grinder pumps that were included in the project and included in the betterments that the people have to pay. And the problem was, because not everyone had to hook up immediately 10 years ago, and they hook up over time, they're still hooking up. We're getting close to being complete there, though, is we didn't want to buy these grinder pumps and put them on a shelf for 10 years. For one, the warranty disappears before you even use them. And so what we did is put the money aside, and every year we draw on it for this division, and they buy, a half dozen pumps or 10 grinder pumps a year, and then we distribute them out to the homes via the installation contractors as needed. And so that's about $50,000 a year, and that they're around $1,500, $2,000 a pump, I think. And if Mark knows better, he can correct me, but that's my recollection. Moving to the next enterprise account, Water Supply Division. We have a contract operation there. We have since the beginning of that division, which is in 2005. We purchased the Barnstable Water Company, private entity. And ever since then, we have had a contractor managed by a engineer and division supervisor, Hans Kaiser, that works for me. And there's an escalator in that contract. And this year, that amount is $121,082 based on the formula in that contract. That contract's worked out very well, very few issues over the years. And we frankly have a very well-run system through this means. Originally made sense to do this because when we bought the system, if we were to hire people, we would have had to had an instant division brought up to speed and doing this work, and it just didn't make sense at the time. It was more cost effective to contract out instant expertise to be able to run this system. And as you can see, 17 years in going, it's doing well. Operating capital for Water Supply Division annually is $150,000 plus $16,000 for police details that work on water main breaks. Anytime we're working in the road, we have to have a police detail. And the $150,000 is for emergency repairs, valves, hydrants, computer systems, things that fail throughout the year.
Do you typically spend that whole 150,000 pretty quickly, or is that something, or year to year if there's issues?
Not pretty quickly, but we do spend it. And I don't know, since I've been here, we've never sought additional funds through a supplemental. So we've managed that pretty well.
Great, thanks.
Moving over to solid waste division, our final enterprise division, enterprise account division. The first decision package is for municipal solid waste disposal fee increase. Disposal costs for municipal solid waste, that's the trash. If you use the facility, that's what goes into the first compactors. That's the non-recyclables, just kind of general waste. And that price has gone from $98.50 a ton to $145 a ton
Wow.
for disposal.
Wow.
We have a year remaining in that contract with some extensions if we choose, but decided to go out to bid this year, this calendar year, to see if we can be more competitive with that number. We'll see. That's how we find out. We go out to bid. But this
What is the duration of the contract typically?
10 years with 5-year extensions. That's how it
And
was
are
in
there,
the past.
are there escalators every year?
Yes,
Is it a percentage?
it's based on CPI.
Uh-huh.
So it's basically
Wow.
inflation.
Hmm.
That's $385,000. Thus, the increase in the sticker to $375 this year.
Wow.
And honestly, it's still below what the real costs are. We've been using some reserves, buildup of reserves to offset and mitigate some of those increases. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see additional increases in the future, despite increases in recycling and solid waste.
Dan, Betty Leckie here. Can I ask you, do the schools do their own solid waste disposal, or are they
Yeah.
somehow part of this?
No, this is just a residential transfer station.
Just the residential. So the schools, they do their own contract.
Yes, and I don't really know anything about what they do. Mark may know.
Okay.
I imagine they hire one of the local companies and to empty their dumpsters.
And then what about the town offices and things?
My structures and grounds division has a garbage truck, and we service the dumpsters in town. And that material goes to Yarmouth Transfer Station, where it goes by rail to CMAS.
So that's a totally different contract at a different price per ton, or?
It's about the same price.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
So the next item is increase in construction and demolition debris. This is an item that we charge for, so we have revenue to offset these costs and increases. This increase is $160,000, and it's based on being the new contract being increased by about 20% for construction and demolition debris. So you can see those costs going up as well. There's for both solid waste and this material, there are fewer and fewer options available every year. Landfills are closing, facilities are closing.
Mm.
It's a problem that at some point the state really is going to need to help communities resolve. They're not building new incinerators, and these contractors dispose of the wastes wherever it's cheapest for them. So sometimes our waste goes to Rochester to the incinerator. Other times it goes to Massachusetts landfills, and sometimes it goes as far away as Ohio and Alabama.
And Dan, can I ask you, Betty, one more question? What percentage of our residents use the transfer station? Do you know what percentage that is?
I don't know the percent, but we have about 8,000 customers, and there are about 27,000 households.
And can a summer resident get
So
a
it's about a
sticker?
third. some of residents, they either buy a sticker for their household, or we allow visits. You pay per visit, and based on the number of bags, you pay a different price.
And would there be any savings if you had more households participating or not? There's no correlation there? Would,
Yeah, more customers is more revenue. I mean, there's
But it
more
would be more-
trash too, but
be more waste too, though,
Yeah.
more waste?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, pretty much it's probably a linear relationship between customers and municipal solid waste tonnage.
And Dan, the private carting services that some people hire to pick up, do they bring their material to Barnstable Waste Station?
No, they do not. They're commercial operations, so they're not allowed. They're doing a variety of things. Probably most of them go to Yarmouth or go directly to CMAS in Rochester.
Mhm.
That's the majority of households in Barnstable use that service. And I think it's probably around $600 a year today for the
Right.
service. It can goes up for there if you have recyclables or you have, more pickups. And that's managed. That's managed.
8 years
through
ago when
health
we,
division.
8 years ago when my wife and I moved here, it was the sticker price and the price to hire a carting service weren't that far apart. They were fairly close, but there's a big difference between 600 and 375, whatever the new sticker is.
It all depends on what convenience is worth to you. And you got to drive to the transfer station. All right, next item is recycling materials disposal, and that's being increased by $60,000. This is things like plastic, cardboard, glass, miscellaneous paper. Those are the recyclables that people don't pay extra for. It's part of their permit fee. Those costs are going up, and those items go to various places. And the only thing we make money on is metal. We pay a fee to dispose of everything else: plastic, glass, mixed paper, and cardboard. We mix our tin cans in with other metals that go to the metal pile, and we get good revenue from that operation.
What one is the most expensive to recycle?
Right now, it's it may be the glass. I don't know for sure. I can get back to you on that. And the glass goes to as much as they can take. Dennis has a glass processing plant, which they create materials for asphalt, like a subgrade. And so we bring as much as we can there. That's a little less expensive than going off Cape.
I had some students last year that were looking into plastic recycling. And there seems to be a lot of questions around, where it goes, what happens to it. Does it in fact get recycled? Does it a place the plastics go as traditional, or is it one that can bounce around as well?
Our current municipal solid waste contractor takes the plastic and they go to a materials recycling facility, which basically they put it all together. And then this process blows air and gets the paper out and plastic drops out. And so they separate it all. And then based on whatever markets are current, they dispose of it that way. And it's not unusual for plastic to not be recycled. There just aren't the markets. This came about around 2015, 2016, when I'm sure you heard China just closed the door on recyclables. worldwide, and that created significant cost increases and really a mess. But
So is it necessarily
Oh,
cost
sorry.
effective to send our plastics away? Or, I mean, I think it makes people feel good with plastics, like, hey, look, I'm recycling. But
Yeah.
if the town is paying money just to make people feel good, would
Yeah,
it? I don't know what the cost is, so I don't know if it's a significant savings, but
well, the catch is actually around about 5 or 6 years ago, after this China issue, the cost of disposing of trash was the same as the cost of disposing of recyclables. So a lot of people ask the question you're asking is why are recycling? And the reason is there's a waste ban through the Department of Environmental Protection. We are not allowed to put recyclables in the waste stream. So
all
we
right,
have to separate them out.
great, thank you.
Dan, I have a question. What do we do with the composting?
Compost we create,
No, I mean, you could, people who bring their
food waste.
compostables to the transfer station.
Yeah.
I know there's a big receptacle there. Do we let it compost and then redistribute, or do we pull it off someplace else?
No, so there's two things. There's the food waste. I think that's what you're talking about.
Right.
Food waste is heavy,
Yeah.
so it makes sense to remove that from your solid waste stream because you're paying $120, $145 a ton now. You get rid of potato peelings. So we have a program where it goes to a contractor that does some composting with it and feeds animals, pigs with it. We do pay. We have to pay to dispose of that.
Oh, okay.
We wouldn't be allowed to do composting of food waste on our site. We do composting. We do it with yard and leaf clippings, and we generate compost with that and make it available to the public or people that use the facility at no cost.
Thank you.
So we have some contracted services at the solid waste division, and this compost that I mentioned we create, we do sometimes we have to have a company come in and screen that and process it so it's usable. And we also have a rate study every year that allows us to set our rates, to consider all our revenue and expenditures and capital program. And between the two of those, we're seeking a $10,000 increase as a result of increases to those services. We're seeking additional $23,000 in overtime. You may know, if you use the facility, that the transfer station is open 7 days a week, 8 hours a day. And because of that and the staffing levels, we rely on some level of overtime to operate the facility. And the more waste you get in, the busier it is, the more we need employees to be on site. We've looked at the cost of additional FTEs versus overtime. And at the end of the day, it makes more sense to have some amount of overtime to address our needs rather than hiring full-time employees that may not be needed all the time.
As one who goes to the dump every 2 weeks, like the employees there are fantastic. They are really top notch, and I commend you for the
Thank you.
operation.
Thank you. And we save lives too. You may have heard
Yeah,
of
I
that.
mean, it's such a great operation. So I think the funding that the town is providing, it seems like it's working, and I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you.
While we're on the subject, the batteries area, where does that stuff go? Quickly,
I don't know, Hector. I can find
Yeah.
out. I know
Yeah.
we pay vendors that take it
Yeah.
and goes where it's supposed to go.
Yeah, okay.
But I
Anyway,
don't
we
know
should,
specifically.
okay, thank you.
Actually, that's the next item is it's hard to dispose of items or hard to recycle materials. We call them charm materials. Not that they're charming, but And this is mattresses, propane tanks, Freon items, tires, rechargeable batteries. And these we also charge people who bring these things. So this is a line item that has an offset through revenue, and we're seeking
Mhm.
$28,000 additional based
Mhm.
on what we're seeing as increased disposal of those items. Seeking $7,000 increase for uniforms. We use uniforms at the solid waste facility. Uniforms are not required based on our contracts, but employees, if they so choose, may take advantage of the uniform program. And our collective bargaining agreements have certain provisions in there for the cost and amount of uniforms, and that cost is just going up. So we're seeking this $7,000 increase. And then finally, at our main office there, we need to replace the HVAC system in that buildings, that's probably around 20 years old now, where you buy your permit. We're seeking $30,000 to replace the HVAC system in that main office building. It is basically at the end of its useful life, and our technicians have recommended replacing that before it fails.
And that's a capital budget outlay. Right.
No, that's because it's $30,000.
Oh, it's under the
Yeah,
250.
50,000.
Yep. Yep. Got it.
Okay, we're going to move into DPW General Fund with the Highway Division. First item is seeking an increase for police details, $35,000 increase. We spend a lot of money on police details, and for two reasons. Three reasons. One is primarily safety, because our highway division, our tree crews, they're working in the roadway or on the shoulder almost exclusively. And we are required to have police details other than on, basic secondary roads where there's very little traffic. And we have contracts. The police department has collective bargaining agreements, and this is all part and parcel of that. They have their hourly rates that are pretty significant, frankly, and we spend a lot of money for our general fund for police details, for our enterprise fund, and a lot of money through our construction contractors in the CWMP. Those contractors paying for police details. Now, the deal we struck with the police in the last couple of years, because there's such demand for police details with all of the work we're doing, we have come to an agreement with them. If they can't provide a police detail, then we're able to provide flaggers. So we have companies we can hire flaggers from, or the contractor can hire flaggers and legitimately use those. Unfortunately, it's not all that less expensive. The hourly rate is pretty significant too, with the bulk of that money going to the company, as you can imagine. Those men and women out there with the flags aren't getting a whole lot of money. But there is actually a prevailing wage for flaggers. We have a pre-service contract that we are seeking $50,000 for. This is primarily because it's very difficult to hire arborists in communities. This is one of those jobs that there aren't a lot of them around, and they make very good money in private industry and private companies. And we've had jobs open for 2 years. So we've been forced to move to using contractors, and we're offsetting that. There'll be salary savings to offset that, but in discussions with Director Milne, we don't want to totally eliminate that program because we would prefer to have that function in-house and have more control. So we will continue to hire or attempt to hire arborists. And if we're successful, then we won't need to spend this money on contractors. Next one is road marking. It was we changed the name. It says supplies. You may be looking at it that way, but it's services. This is contracted out, and this is a $150,000 increase. We have 450 miles of roads in this town, and we paint annually the center yellow lines and the white fog lines. So you have to multiply that out, all those miles, basically by 4, and do this every year. And the cost has gone up significantly. This is not a function we can do in-house. You want to do it quickly, so there's large companies that come in and do it overnight over a couple of weeks, and we get it all done. Osterville Drawbridge maintenance. This is the bridge that connects the mainland to Little Island and then ultimately Oyster Harbor's Grand Island. We're looking for $40,000. This is a new request. And these are to provide maintenance visits, 3 maintenance visits for the structural, mechanical, and electrical aspects of the bridge, to do some inspections and routine maintenance. We found that we've been doing this in the past with other funds in the department, and we've had fewer instances where the bridge gets stuck up or down as a result. Now we have an entire, as you heard in our capital budget presentations, program to do major repairs and ultimately replacement of this bridge. But this is while we continue to use it in the annual maintenance and inspection program. Every year, we do maintenance for the Sandy Neck facility. There are trails, primarily the trail that goes from the gatehouse all the way out to the cottage colony. Those are taxpaying residents of the town of Barnstable, and we have to maintain that roadway for them to get out there, as well as for the rangers to get around Sandy Neck. And this takes specialized equipment that we no longer have in the department. We used to be able to get equipment from defense, military vehicles that were repurposed. Those are less available, and so we have to rent vehicles to do this work. And this is $25,000 a year to do this rental. We do it somewhat on during the week with general fund employees, and then on the weekends to finish up any overtime that's required, or for a longer day, Sandy Neck Enterprise account funds that overtime. Final decision package in the highway division is for sandblasting and paint. We're looking for $20,000 to do that work. We have an extremely competent maintenance program for our vehicles, maintenance and repair. And we found that as we do regularly in our OPCAP program with vehicle purchases, we've given a lot of thought to how to maximize value and minimize costs for that program over the years. And one of the ways through our maintenance program is to do our own, we sandblast and paint to maintain vehicles. It allows them to last longer. Vehicles that are used for snow and ice are bathed in salt. Salt destroys vehicles very rapidly. And by not just letting that happen, we do wash them, by the way, after they're used, but by sandblasting and repainting, we're able to get several more years out of the vehicles. So this is a program that really pays for itself. Our vehicle OPCAP program is $500,000 per year. It's been that way for a long time, and it would have gone up, but for probably 7 or 8 years ago, we started buying used vehicles. We found that there were old Oshkosh vehicles from airports. We found that utilities get rid of their bucket trucks, so those chassis and bodies of those trucks are actually great for us. We just put sanders on the back or dumps. And so we've been able to maintain this $500,000 op cap for vehicles for a long time and still meet our needs. I'll mention that we have a couple of significant truck buys coming up. One is the trash truck, or it's called a packer. It's a compactor. That's reaching the end of its useful life. We have pump trucks. So we're facing some 3 vehicles, and these run $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. So we're going to be seeking an individual capital request to replace those vehicles outside of this annual operating capital request. You'll see that come forth in the next year. We're requesting funds for an FTE as a stormwater project manager. This is a single individual. And the reason for this is the federal government implemented a stormwater maintenance and inspection program several years ago called MS4. And it's Municipal Storm Sewer. I don't know if it's here. I forget the exact title, but it's Municipal Storm Sewer Program. And we had to develop local regulations for stormwater management. And all this takes a significant effort for reviews of plans, inspections, and reporting. And there's no way with our existing staff are we able to do this work. It takes an engineering experience to do it. And so we have put in a request for one individual FTE at the grade 14 level to do this work. And that's a $136,570 all-in price for that person. We're looking for an $11,000 increase for our pond and lake water quality sampling and analysis. Several years ago, we started a freshwater ponds program to evaluate all of our freshwater ponds in the town and then develop mitigation plans and programs for those ponds. And as we inspect and do reports on these ponds, we have a requirement for additional long-term maintenance. And so this 11,000 is reflective of that additional cost increase as we add water bodies to the program. And you'll see that continue year after year. The town council felt that we needed to get a handle on freshwater ponds. As you have heard, I'm sure, cyanobacteria and other algae blooms are impacting the usability and safety of these ponds. And beyond just the CWMP, which is looking at our coastal water estuaries and resources, this looks at our freshwater resources. Excuse me. Moving to structures and grounds division. Facilities operating capital, that's $160,000. And that covers all of the kind of mid-level, non-capital priced replacement of equipment for heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, water pumps and wells, elevator equipment, fire suppression systems, generators, and other utility and mechanical equipment. This is in our budget every year, and we do use it every year. Sometimes we have to do some salary savings transfers if we have a particularly large or expensive year.
Dan, I think for the rest of the items, why don't you focus on the larger ones? We're 50 minutes into this, and I see Chief of Police is waiting to give her presentation.
Yeah, I probably got 5 or 10 minutes to do the rest.
Yeah. Okay, good.
So we have natural gas used in our facilities. We're seeking a $30,000 increase in that amount because of natural gas price increases. There was a question about this when we met with the manager, and I'm not sure of the resolution. I don't know if you do, Mark, but we do negotiate gas rates, and this increase will be reflective of whatever that increase is for natural gas for the coming year. So it may not be $30,000, but that's on the outside. We are looking for $15,000 for additional supplies, and that includes for HVAC supplies. This is all the things we need, not equipment, but supplies to operate the system. Lubricants and refrigerants, custodial supplies are significant. So we're seeking an addition to those line items because we've seen those costs and usages increase over the last 2 years. We're looking for a $5,000 increase for inspections. We have maintenance inspections for certain items of equipment, and that includes fire suppression systems, steam boilers, generators, and drinking water systems. And so we're seeking a $5,000 increase for those contracted services. Town buildings have alarm systems. Those costs are increasing. We're seeking $5,000 to address the increase in our building fire and security alarm systems. And then finally, didn't even take 5 minutes. We have animal and pest control services. Occasionally we have issues with breakouts of various pests and nuisances, and we have to address that with contracted services. And we've seen those costs over the last 2 years increase, and we've spent in excess of our line items, borrowing from other line items that have had less costs. And we'd like to balance that out with an $8,000 increase. That concludes all of the decision packages and operating capital requests for Public Works. I'd be happy to answer, if I can, any other questions you may have.
Thank you.
Any specific questions, especially from the subcommittee members?
I guess the big concern I have is going back to the transfer station. And it just seems like we're spending way more there. We're not charging high enough fees to residents for the cost of actually disposal, it sounds to me. And is that something we should start taking a look at?
Well, we do. I guess maybe Mark would be more articulate about it than I, but basically, as I said, it's full cost recovery. So but for the fact that we do have reserves available to offset and mitigate increases, we would be charging exactly what it costs to operate that facility to those permit holders.
Yeah, so
So-
it's going to be a multiple year planned rate increase as opposed to, implementing sticker shock all in one year. We strategically utilize those reserves to gradually increase the sticker to where it needs to be to cover these significant increases in disposal costs that we're realizing. So our plan is to do that, over a period of time to avoid that sharp spike in any one year.
When I started in, I'm sorry.
The increase this year was $75 or $100, correct?
320 to 375.
320, 375.
Yeah, when I started here in 2013, the disposal cost for MSW was $37 per ton, and we had a $20 offset, a subsidy from the state, so we were paying $17 a ton. Now it's $145, and we use it, and we go through about 8,000 or 9,000 tons a year. But we're not alone. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Has the license plate scanner offset, has that been a cost savings since it was implemented over the stickers?
I'd say yes. What it allows us to do is much more effectively manage who's coming into the facility. And now I don't need as many eyes looking at the vehicles. They get notifications, so they can do other things, and they'll get notified in the building that a car doesn't have a permit. So it really has been a great program. It works marvelously.
Okay, good.
One quick question, Dan, Chris King here, is with Sandy Neck. The Sandy Neck, I know it's small, it's $25,000, but it's more of getting my head wrapped around the fact that Sandy Neck is an enterprise fund, and you have a line item on here to pay for $25,000. Wouldn't they pay for the $25,000 requirement that asking you to repair their the enterprise funds trails?
I think that's more of a question for Mark Milne to respond to.
Thank you, Dan. Yes, so it's a good question, Chris. And the reason why we included this in DPW's budget is because the cottages out that are located out on the neck are subject to property taxes because the town owns the land. They lease that land from the town of Barnstable, which makes the land underneath the cottages and the building subject to real estate taxes. And so we include this as part of DPW's budget because they are paying taxes into the general fund.
Okay. And the they have a annual fee that they pay to Sandy Neck for the ability to not only rent, but maybe rent the land for their cottage?
Yes, those payments go into the enterprise fund.
Okay. Just, again, just getting my head wrapped around where all the dollars go.
Follow the money.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Dan.
Well, if no other questions for Dan, thank you very much. Appreciate your time as always, and appreciate all of DPW's good work.
Thank
We
you.
all benefit from it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you,
Great
Dan.
night. Yeah.
Thank you. Take care. Next item on our agenda is to hear from the Chief of Police on the police department's operating budget. So Chief and team, please go ahead.
Good evening. So I'm here with Ann Spillane, our Director of Support Services, as well as Deputy Chief Jennifer Ellis and Mark Mullen. We are trying to share a screen because we have a brief PowerPoint. I don't know if you can, it says that the host disabled screen sharing, if you can let us share our screen.
All set, you should be able to go.
Great, thank you. The right one. Do you have the right one selected? Do you have the right one selected?
That one?
Yep.
That's 2025. Final presentation.
Yeah, yeah.
We went to 2026. Right?
No,
But if you think it's not this,
it's 2025.
then Mark just.
Sure.
There we go.
There we go.
It's working.
All right, sorry. Technology is a challenge, so I apologize for that. So we'll just go through the bulk of our decision packages, and then as we go through some of the highlights and challenges, some of our other funding requests, we can talk about some of the other requests that we have, but basically, can you go to the next slide?
You got it.
Okay, and can you do the switch the view?
I think we want to do a slideshow.
Yep, but I don't know how to get there.
What is it you want to do? We
Okay.
can see the slide.
There we go.
There we
Okay.
go. Okay.
I can't, so that's
Okay.
fine. So We are requesting funding for vehicle replacements. This is for $660,547, and that is for 8 vehicles. 5 of those would be patrol vehicles, Chevy Tahoes, fully marked, fully outfitted vehicles, including the MDTs, the AEDs, the required printer that we have to have in those for the e-citations. And 2 of those are low-profile vehicles. One is a Ford and one is a Chevy, and then 1 administrative vehicle. So we're replacing 5 patrol vehicles that are being turned over and turned in because of high mileage. 2 of the vehicles, which are the low-profile ones, those are actually currently assigned to specialty units, and those are being cycled into our detail fleet because we do need cars that are available for details. So those have slightly lower mileage in the 100,000, 110,000 mile range. And then 1 of those vehicles is going to be an administrative vehicle. Oh, you don't need to see me. So that covers the vehicles. We are trying currently to locate vehicles that are on the lot because we're trying to avoid tariff impact, but every single police department is trying to do the same thing. So we're scrambling to see if we can locate vehicles that are available right now. We're requesting funding for an increase in our IT services. We were able to carve out 26,875 that would be considered discretionary, which leaves $24,942 as non-discretionary. We are going to have Okers continue to manage our IT support, which would provide us with our full-time on-site IT administrator, MS 365 for all of our users, our Barracuda email filtering. We did have some issues, not issues, but our VMware, which used to be a perpetual license, is now an annual license. So that is an annual cost now to us. Our Rise Vision signage, which provides our sex offender signs, we're now required to post those, and that is an added cost this year. Our camera software is an increasing cost to us for $3,500. And then we needed more digital forensic storage for $28,000. And we are requesting spare desktops, 4 for the dispatch area and 2 for the watch commanders area in the event that we had some sort of a failure in the system. So the discretionary items that we have identified are 5 remote workstations. Town Manager Ellis had asked us to prepare for the bridge project and identify potential assignments that could be done remotely in the building. And we felt that 5 was a reasonable number, but we did identify that as something that was discretionary at this time. There's a conference room speaker or microphone, and then also small desktops that we would use in the event of a lapse in the generator kicking in was another item that we identified that we could hold off on for now. So ultimately, we felt that of that 51,000, 24,942 would be non-discretionary for us. Our training budget, we are requesting $405,008. This is a basically covering our mandatory training as well as training in the area of professional development for our patrol staff, our supervisors. We do have a number of positions that need to be refilled due to promotions, such as sexual assault investigators, field training officers. We have a number of non-discretionary assignments, though, that also need to be filled, or the training's non-discretionary, and those are for our school resource officers, our firearms instructors, crash reconstruction officers, and then all of us have to attend in-service So there's a mix of discretionary and non-discretionary training in the budget that we presented. And I did just raise one. I know that Mark Milne had asked that we identify what was discretionary and non-discretionary. And my concern with going forward with only the absolute mandatory training is that unless you have a specialty position, unless you are an instructor, or unless you are already a subject matter expert, the only training that's mandatory is in service, and that's 40 hours of online training once a year. So you never have an opportunity for any professional development, but you also, as an agency, we're really not able to provide any training that aids in teaching people about leadership, professional development in the area that they might want to expand their skill set. You never get to become an instructor. You never get to become somebody eligible for a specialty position. So what happens is you end up with a very, base level understanding of things, and actually it exposes the town and the department to a tremendous amount of liability because you have an untrained police force. So while we can identify what's mandatory and what's discretionary, it ends up creating a real problem in the long run, because you just end up with people that are not ever growing. The in-service training that we get, I would say, is subpar. It's provided by the state. And what we really want to do is be able to send people to classes such as legally justified, but was it avoidable? Or, the FBI LEADA trilogy classes on leadership. Things like that, where, you're raising the bar and you're teaching people to think. So I know it's a big ask, but and part of the reason it's high is because we're not able, due to contract restrictions, to send people to training in lieu of their shift right now. But hopefully that will be changing. So I know that's a large amount, but that's where we are with our training request. We're also asking for $36,438 due to the increase in garage parts. Just as an example, tires have increased $42 a piece. Brake pads and rotors have increased tremendously. For aftermarket parts, the mechanics here were doing that per vehicle 3 times per year to a cost of $708. If they use manufacturer's parts, they only have to do it once a year, and it costs $730. So it saves a tremendous amount of labor for us to use manufacturer's parts. But oil filters have gone from $4.99 to $16.08. Engine oil has gone from $878 for 7 barrels to $969 for 7 barrels. So we've seen a tremendous increase in the cost of garage parts, and we need to be able to keep the cars on the road and running safely. We are requesting $12,474 for body-worn camera redaction software. Deputy Chief Malin was instrumental in getting the body-worn camera program up and running last year. The program has been tremendously successful. One of the things that we have encountered is an increase in requests for body camera footage. And we also are sending a bunch of camera requests over to court for discovery for cases. And the cameras, if you send 3 people to a call and the cameras are on for a half an hour, that's an hour and a half of camera footage that has to be viewed. So this redaction software does a lot of the work for us, and it's uniform, it's consistent, and it's able to redact faces, license plates, computer screens, and other sensitive information in a uniform manner. So we have had the opportunity to sort of trial that for the past 8 months, and it's been really beneficial to us, and it's helping our records departments keep up with the volume of requests. We're requesting $17,059 in order to provide cell phones to our officers. Officers are constantly being asked to call the station while they're on calls, but more importantly, because of the body worn cameras, they're able to send people at the scenes links so that they can send us video camera footage. They're able to take photographs. They're able to use the language line, which allows them to communicate with people when there's a language barrier, but we can't have them doing that on their personal cell phones because of requests for information from the public and opening themselves up to tremendous amount of exposure. So a lot of the administrative staff already has department issued phones, but this would allow us to offer phones to the patrol officers who are out there every day. We're looking for $42,135 for it says rifle rack, but it's a security system that we would be installing where the officers get their keys for their cruisers, and it would allow them to sign out a rifle and a radar gun, but they're using a key fob basically, so that we are better able to track the location and the security of our high risk, high value assets like the rifles and the radar guns. So we want to make sure that we have a handle on where our property is.
Sorry, can you forward the slide? I think we're still a slide behind. Or is it just me?
No, it's not you. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you just
Okay.
said it. I just said, oh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. We're also seeking $28,000 for a tactical drone for patrol. This is a small drone that would be available for our patrol officers to use. They are the first ones on scene, even though our SWAT team is tremendous and they're really good about their response time. Sometimes it can take 20 minutes or a half hour for some of those guys to get out there and form a team. So the tactical drone is a small drone that can fly inside buildings, and it would be available in a cruiser for those first responding officers to be able to determine whether a suspect's in a house or what kind of a situation they're looking at. And it's, like I said, it's a small drone for flight inside of the building. Our digital forensics unit is requesting additional training and equipment in the amount of $42,062. This original request was up well over $70,000, and we asked them to pare it down significantly. So what they're requesting now is it has been tremendously reduced. We have some subject matter experts in the in downloading cell phones. Our cell phones are part of every investigation now, whether it's something that's coming from the patrol division or whether it's something that the detectives are working on. I can tell you that the recent Superior Court case that they just concluded over in Barnstable Superior Court, where the gentleman was sentenced to 19 to 20 years for kidnapping and a sexual assault. Cell phones played a huge part in that. So our officers depend tremendously on having cell phone experts here. The cell phones are what held that case together. So they also are looking for a gray key software, which allows us to basically access locked phones.
So license renewal.
That part of it is the license renewal, yep. And then we are looking also for license plate readers. And then the plate reader subscription. And also there's other things in that too.
Well, many of these are
That's-
renewals on classes,
Yes.
so that they
So
could
there's-
stay certified in the as experts in the area.
Yep, so we're just looking to have our detectives remain subject matter experts so we can continue to provide a high quality service. And also there was, I believe, one other request for just thumb drives because we use those as well. But the bulk of it was training and equipment. I will say that they make use of the Secret Service training site down in Alabama regularly. And when they attend those classes there, they're routinely given thousands of dollars worth of equipment that they're able to bring back here, which is available to all of us. So not only do they bring back their training, but they bring back a tremendous amount of equipment. I'd say we have tens of thousands of dollars of equipment that they've brought back to us from these trainings. So even though this is a significant ask, the detectives do a great job in seeking out free training and then bringing back assets for us. They're requesting $7,589 in funding for the Marine unit. This is primarily for commissioning and decommissioning the Gannon, the safe boat, and also the Nauset, the lake boat. So we do have a small amount of money that we need to use to repair the lake boat because it's old, and we're going to do that repair in-house. But the remaining money is just to make sure that we're taking proper care of that safe boat, which is a great asset for us. And then $24,756 for our community policing programs, which include our Citizens Police Academy and our Police Explorers program. And both of those allow members of the community to come in and learn a little bit more about what it's like to work at the police department, to be a police officer working in law enforcement. The Explorers program is geared towards high school students. The Citizens Police Academy is really open to anyone 18 and over that's a Barnstable resident. We're hoping that if we're able to successfully come out of civil service, that the Police Explorers program will be a pipeline for us for hiring once those high school students get a little bit older, that we'll have some of them returning. We do have a lot of them that have expressed interest, and one of them now is going to come on and work as a community service officer for the summer. So that's exciting for us. Oh, thank you. All right, so some of the highlights for us over the past year was the implementation of the body-worn camera program. Last May, I think 10 years ago, if you told officers that they were going to have to wear cameras, everybody would have run out of here. But they have definitely proved to be a tremendously valuable asset for us. They've reduced the number of complaints, and I would say tremendously reduced the number of false complaints. And without a doubt, they improve people's behavior on both sides of the lens. So that's been phenomenal for us. We have addressed the tremendous number of personnel that were out on long-term leave and long-term absences. At this moment, we don't have anybody out that's unaccounted for or without a return date, which was huge for us last year at this time. I believe we had 11 people out. But every single person that's out right now either has a return date or they've filed retirement paperwork. So that's gone a long way in reducing liability for the PD. And also one of the biggest things is that we are working together, the unions and the town, to help pull the PD out of civil service, which will really be a great benefit for hiring as we move forward, since we have some personnel shortages. Some of the challenges that we're facing, this has been relatively new, is that there was an update to Rule 14 in the Mass Rules of Criminal Procedure, and that has led to increases in what we're required to produce for discovery to the district attorney's office, which has really increased the workload for our prosecution office. So as a result, our victim services advocate, who does that as a part-time part of her job, has really had to devote a lot more of her time into our prosecution office. And as a result, we are seeking funding to hire a full-time victim advocate. We're seeking funding in the amount of $88,128 in order to fill a full-time position that would include benefits. But we're really hopeful that we will be able to provide better service to the victims of crime, whether it's, violent crime, domestic, sexual assault, even fraud cases, things like that, where people just don't have the wherewithal to navigate the court system. And the current victim services advocate would supervise that person, but also really be able to help with the volume of work that's been put on our prosecution office. I was asked by the town manager about alternative funding, and I have reached out to Representative Exaros regarding funding for that position. I just have not heard back from him with regard to that. I would imagine that would be a 1-year earmark type position. We've also had a real increase in Freedom of Information Act requests. So that has resulted in, especially with the body-worn cameras, we've had 129 requests for body-worn camera footage. And as I mentioned before, when you get a request, it's not just for one person that's on scene. People are requesting every camera. So if you have a significant incident and you have 5 people there and the cameras are on for an hour, that's 5 hours worth of camera footage. So that's 5 hours worth of video that somebody has to watch. So the redactions are taking a lot of time. That's why we are requesting the redaction software. But really, the Freedom of Information Act requests are taking a tremendous amount of time. You can't ask anybody why they want the information. So we spend, between the records division, Deputy Chief Malin in his former position, in the lieutenant's office was spending a ton of time making sure that we are careful about what we're releasing, that we're applying the exemptions properly, and making sure that we're complying with the law. And the other big challenge for us is our vacancies. We're down 23 people. We have 14 vacancies. We have 2 pending retirements. We have 3 people that are on military leave. We have 4 people who are, actually that's 3 effective today, that are coming back from long-term medical leave or other leave within the next 2 months. However, we do anticipate that we're losing 1 more officer to a military leave coming up in the next month and a half. And then we have 1 officer with a pending maternity leave. So, for everybody we get back, seems like we're losing somebody due to circumstances beyond our control. So we're struggling to maintain adequate staffing. Patrol is really struggling, and getting out of civil service will be a tremendous help with that, as we are really limited on how we can hire, and we're also limited in how we can attract lateral transfers because it has to be another civil service police department, and there are none in the area. So we have the extra hurdle of trying to attract people that can move here as well. Just to give you an idea of some of the impacts on our overtime budget last year, or this past year. These are some of the community events that we devoted significant overtime resources to that are not a part of our regular budget, and that end up costing us, in total, it was just under $70,000. The Fagawi race, Memorial Day parade, the Father's Day car show, the long table, Osterville Day, Barnstable Village Honor Guard, the Open Streets events, the July 4th parades across all of the villages, and then the concert, Unity Day, Second Summer fireworks, Adult Community Safety Day, security at the Kennedy compound, Open Streets, Touch a Truck, the Halloween parades, both in Osterville and in Hyannis, and all of the Christmas strolls. So we were reimbursed $30,030 from the celebration fund, but ultimately that was just under $70,000 out of our overtime budget for these community events. So we're grateful to be able to provide a presence at these events, but it definitely has an impact on our overtime budget. We do rely heavily on our grant funding, and we continue to seek grants, and we will continue to. Just to review some of the ones that we are currently using, the CDBG grant is the $28,488 is how we currently fund our winter community service officers. So we have 2 CSOs that are out there from Columbus Day through Memorial Day, walking the Main Street area. Our emergency management performance grant is, and you're gonna have to back me up on this one.
So this year we used that money that's funded through MEMA, and that.
Oh, that did the mapping.
Yeah, I did. We purchased mapping, kind of a programming, and also special lighting that you can set up at an emergency site. Like if you had a natural disaster or an emergency of some sort. So that's always the type of things you can apply for with that grant. That's what we chose this year, or needed this year.
Our road safety grant is the grant that we use for traffic enforcement. So we usually break it into several topics like click it or ticket, distracted driving, crosswalk, things like that. And that's ongoing through the year. Our DMH jail diversion component grant, the $117,500 is used to fund many of the programs of our community impact unit. So that covers a lot of our training. It covers our community crisis intervention team meetings. It covers a lot of the stakeholder meetings that the CIU attends. And that also covers some of the CSO training. So before the CSOs hit the streets in June, we're able to cover some of the training and the mental health first aid class that they attend through that grant. We have an earmark for $48,000. That's what's left of the earmark. And that will be available to cover a second clinician. We do not have a second clinician at this time. And I'll discuss the clinician situation in a minute. Our support and incentive grant for $300,000, $300,026 from state 911 covers the cost of our dispatchers. And
overtime and
overtime and straight pay for the dispatchers. Our state 911 training grant for $23,268 covers the 16 hours of mandatory training for them, the annual in-service or annual recertification training that they have to do every year. The emergency medical dispatch grant covers the quality assurance and the protocols for the EMD that they provide, which is the medical support they give when someone calls 911 and they give medical instructions over the phone. The Safe Neighborhood Initiative Grant is a grant that our detectives used with the state police in order to provide support, and they did drug investigations with the state police in partnership with them so that they were able to make some drug arrests and clean up some of the neighborhoods around town. That was primarily used by the detective division, I would say. And then the Telecommunicator Emergency Response Task Force grant, it's a regional program. One of our dispatchers is part of this team. And should there be a critical incident in the state, she'd be eligible to go assist with dispatch. So this is for training and things like that that are associated with being part of this task force. The Burn grant, we used this money this year to cover the cost of the Citizens Police Academy and the Police Explorers, because we wanted to be able to provide these programs, and it covered the cost of the overtime associated with those. the State 911 Regional Communication Center, 611,000 was the cost of, well, that was the grant award that we were given for combined 2 years of grant applications for architecture and design services for the regional dispatch. For the rec that we are looking to build for Yarmouth, Sandwich, and Barnstable together. And then the COPS grant is covering the cost of 2 police officers over the course of 3 years. And then the car seat program is one which we purchased car seats, and we train department members to properly install car seats. So members of the community can come in and have their own car seats installed, or if they need a car seat, we're able to give them car seats. We do have several grant applications pending. We just submitted an FY26 State 911 construction grant request. That was for $14,511,413. $887,238 of that was again for design and architecture. So that would be added to the 611,000 from last year. And that is for continued design for the regional dispatch center, and the remaining $13,624,175 will be for construction. The plan is to build a regional dispatch center on site in the lot next to the police department for Yarmouth, Barnstable, and Sandwich, with hopes of other communities deciding to join us in that. So it will be built for expansion. We've applied for a DMH jail diversion co-response grant to provide 1 full-time clinician for $129,742. The reason you did not see one in our current grants is because we did not retain our clinician last year in December. That relationship ended, and as a result, DMH took our funding away. So we did not have an opportunity to rehire and keep the grant. They just shut off our funding. So we're hoping to rehire a new clinician, and we've applied for the grant for that funding. And then our jail diversion component grant for next year, we've asked for $108,190, and that would be to continue to fund the community impact unit activities and the training opportunities that we use every year. We're also still hoping to receive our State 911, our EMPG grant, the Bulletproof Vest grant, the CDBG grants, and the road safety and burn grants as we move forward. So that was a lot, but that is the financial state of the police department, and I'd be happy to try to answer some questions.
Thank you.
Chief.
That was excellent.
Chief, this is Lillian Wu. We have been very empathetic to the civil service requirements that have challenged your hiring. But last year we talked about a little bit about the lateral transfers from other departments that would ease the hiring of new officers. Can you speak to that, if you've made any progress?
So we were hoping that we would be able to attract lateral transfers, and we did offer a signing bonus. The issue that has sort of cropped up for us is that in order to transfer to a civil service police department, you have to transfer from another civil service police department, and there aren't any other civil service police departments on the Cape. So what it means is that you have to find somebody from another civil service agency who's willing to relocate here or who lives close enough to commute here. So I think housing and cost of living issues have sort of popped up as a bit of a barrier. I think once we're out of civil service, we are going to have a much easier time attracting officers from other local police departments because they already live here. But I think the location, our location here on the Cape, has proven to be a bit more of a barrier than we had anticipated.
What's the timing for getting out from under the civil service rules?
We are, I believe that the unions have agreements with the town that just have to be ratified by the unions. But both parties are basically in agreement. And then there's one last review of the policies that are going to build the hiring structure, the promotional structure. And the unions will have to give that one final approval, but the hard work has all been done. So I think we're at the end stages, and I'm hopeful that within the next month, this can be ready to go in front of the town council. I know it's a tough time of year because of budget issues, but it would be great if we could get this done before the end of the fiscal year.
Good luck with that. Great.
You all have become high hurdle experts here.
Chief Betty Ludke here, a couple of questions. One, when I went up to the Mass Municipal Association meeting in Boston in January, they had a electric police car on display. It was from the town of Wellesley, and they were very complimentary of it. Do you look at the electric options at all for vehicles when you're looking? Is that ever looked at cost comparison?
I don't think we've looked at straight electric. We've had a few hybrid vehicles and they have not been reliable for us for patrol. And I believe other communities in the area haven't had great luck with them.
I think the state police had a large amount of hybrid vehicles, and it was kind of a disaster for them. They were not reliable at all, and it did not go well.
I think in a community this large, I think Wellesley's small. So I think when you're talking about a town where it takes you 25 minutes to drive, out to Katuitt from Hyannis on a busy day, I think you just have to be mindful of the fact that you're not driving, a quarter of a mile somewhere. You're driving a distance. I don't know what the feasibility of things like that are. And I also think you end up with repair and maintenance issues that I don't know that we are ready to take on at this point.
Okay. The other question was, you have the 23 vacancies, which seems like a lot. Do you have any sense of what the 10-year trend has been on that? Is that about what you've been doing? Are we going up, going down? How does that compare to previous years?
We were at about the same number of actual vacancies. I think we've actually increased the true number of vacancies, but that's because we have been able to remedy the problem of these long-term absences, which had gone on in some cases for years, with people collecting paychecks, but just sort of being on the books and being stagnant with no real end date and no closure. So I feel better that we actually have vacancies that we can fill instead of these non-vacant positions that we can't fill, but the people aren't coming back to work. So once we're out of civil service, I feel confident that we'll be able to chip away at the vacancies.
All right, here's the third question. Like the Hanover apartments, and we just got the Cape Cod Commission approval for the Hanover 2 or whatever you want to call them out there. Any of your police force live there that you know of? Because there's vacancies out there. I'm just curious. Are those I don't know that they're affordable on the police.
They're not affordable. I had conversations with the gentleman when he was talking about starting the project, and the issue was that I think a studio was $2,400 or $2,300 for a studio. And, a lot of these officers, especially the young officers starting out, are either, they're married or they might have a young child and they don't want to live in a studio or a one-bedroom apartment, and they can't afford it. So I've actually asked that team that I was on the phone with who they were building the apartments for, because I found the rent to be exorbitant.
Right, yeah.
So I just think it's a struggle for people to live here. We have a number of people. That's why we actually increased our radius that we were willing to allow people to live beyond the civil service limits and put a 35-mile radius in our contract to allow people to live farther away because they can't afford to live here. But I will say that that definitely, diminishes the sense of what we want to build here. It's nice to have people live close by here. And
Yeah,
then
no-
when people drive away, they're not going to come back for an overtime shift or an event at the station because they're done. And I think
Yep.
when you lose the ability to have people live close by here, you lose a lot.
Yeah, no, it's sad. We just approved, 400 more of these things that the affordable units are too cheap for you guys and the market rate are too expensive. So there's 400 more you can't use. So,
Right.
and the final thing is a compliment. I can't tell you how much I absolutely loved and appreciate what you said about training. It's enormously beneficial to do training that helps a person grow, to have some opportunities. So I would, support all the money in the world to do that. That is what keeps people motivated and going. And the way you spoke about it was just beautiful. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Hi, Chief. Jeremy Shea here. I would like to echo Councilor Ludke on the training. As a teacher in Barnstable Public Schools, certainly I see in our staff the benefit of training, and I know many of your officers who have gotten training, and it's great to see them learn, and I think it should be a priority. I am happy that you are prioritizing it. I think it's sad that the state doesn't have it as more of a priority statewide. I guess with educators in the district, we have a certain limit for training budgets each year. Is that something that you have, or if someone is going for a lot of things, do you allocate more money to individuals? So just some questions on that. And then just one other question on, do you know the brand of the drone that you are buying?
Well, I don't think we entirely know, because we'd have to go through a procurement process to purchase it, because it's like $28,000 or something.
Yeah,
so
I
we
just
haven't really selected a brand yet.
I had seen that a lot of departments had gone with the DJI, which is the #1 brand, but the Senate recently passed a bill that potentially that company will not be allowed to operate in the US. And I saw there was a lot of police departments that had been stuck with a drone that is in the next year potentially not allowable within our airspace. So just something to keep in mind.
What was it?
DJI.
Yeah, DJI. They're the #1 largest drone maker, so I think they are very popular.
Okay.
But
Made in
Thank you
China.
for that.
yes, yeah, it's an issue with especially less the manufacturing, more just the data that the drones are gathering. So there's issues of, if they could be traced and people could follow them or, hack in. So, but thank you so much. This presentation was fantastic.
Thanks. Just in terms of the training, we do try to, be mindful of people who ask for a little bit of everything and try to have supervisors guide them towards an area of interest or help them identify an area of interest rather than have one person going to, 17 different trainings and then somebody else not getting anything. We do try to have people mentor and coach people towards something that might be an area worth developing or an area that they've shown interest.
Great, thank you. That seems like a great system.
Hi, Chief. Chris King here. Just a couple of real short questions. Is on the BWC footage, do you charge for that or is that a free service?
It's basically the same rules apply to that as to other Freedom of Information Act requests. So after 2 hours, we can charge, but the first 2 hours, just like with every other request, are free. So
And we do provide, if excessive, we do provide a quote so
Yeah.
that they have an idea. Sometimes that is a deterrent.
Yep, good, understand, and that was one question. The other one is very proud for Barnstable to become a regional dispatch center. I think that's excellent, especially for the towns that are bordering Barnstable. Is that going to be a service that is charged to the other towns?
So the other towns, everything is like prorated based on your call volume. And obviously Barnstable carries the heaviest call volume by far, but there's a agreement or an intermunicipal agreement that all three communities have signed. So
So there is you are sharing the burden of the
yes, yes.
but I still think it's great that Barnstable's taking the lead to be the regional center.
Yeah, well, we're grateful that it's going to be located here in town. That'll be good for us.
Good, thank you.
Other questions, especially from the subcommittee? Hearing none, Chief and team, thank you very much for your time and the detailed comments that you've provided to us. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So I think we hit stop share.
So moving on. Communications from staff, Mark, and any comments? In particular, you sent around an email about the final draft of the intended use plan. First, my question is, does it have everything in it that the town wanted? Or have there been subtractions that we should be concerned about?
No, the final plan that was issued by DEP last week included both projects that were
Right.
in the original draft. So
Right.
we did receive everything that we anticipated, or that we expected, that we submitted. That was good news. The other good news is that they're going to continue to allow projects to be carried over. And so that was good news, because the original draft, they indicated that they weren't guaranteeing the carryover of funding for projects. And that $50 million cap remains, but they were at least guaranteeing the funding of the total cost of the project that's included in that 2025 IUP. So that was good news. So we'll see what happens when they come out with their 2026 plan. I would anticipate that they may make some changes to the way they provide funding for communities based on what they tried to do this year, but decided not to. And they've made a commitment to involve all stakeholders in discussions when developing that. So that was good news as well, because we don't want to be caught off guard or be not caught off guard, but be surprised by significant changes to a program that we rely upon without any pre-knowledge of those changes. So it was good news all around for that with the final plan that came out last week, and I shared that with all of you.
Excellent. Any other staff communications, Mark?
Yeah, so we've just an update on the operating budget development. Of course, we're still in discussions with department heads. You can see there's a significant amount of requests being submitted. We are not in a financial position to fund all of these. And so, we're evaluating, really going down through what that discretionary versus non-discretionary phase is right now, to at least include the items that we have to in order to maintain services. But then, there's other value adjustments that we have to make And we have to figure out what we're comfortable with as far as using reserves to balance the operating budget, because we will be using reserves to balance the operating budget to at least provide level service. But the good news is that we're in a position to be able to do so with the strong reserve levels that we have, but it's not a long-term financing option by any means. So, but having the reserve levels we do provides us an opportunity for a softer landing if we need to go in that direction, depending upon our revenue growth in the future years. So, revenue growth could change with everything that's going on, in our current environment. We could see, reductions in the growth in our local receipts, new building growth activity. All of that would reduce the available funding for our ongoing services. And so, we have to manage this, but we don't want to manage it in 1 year. We want to manage it over multiple years, that in the event we have to make reductions in service levels, we do it strategically over a period of time, so there isn't a significant reduction all in 1 year. So that's where we're at. We're still, we've pretty much wrapped up the enterprise funds today. I'll share with the operating budget subcommittee what the line item budgets for the enterprise funds look like. And then, but for the general fund municipal departments, we're still going through that evaluation process. We don't have a final budget, but next week we should have that finalized. We have a meeting this Friday to review a potential end to the development of the budget, but I'm sure there'll be a few more questions that we'll need to flesh out after that meeting on Friday. So that gets us into next week before we have a final budget. But the budget book itself, we won't have that back from the printers until second week of May. It's scheduled to be submitted to the town council on May 14th. I think CFAC's report is due a little bit after that date. So that's where we stand with the development of the budget. Of course, the final approved school department budget has been shared with the committee. We have those figures. We already have a draft of the subcommittee's report on that section that has been provided to the superintendent for their review. And so we're in good shape.
Great. Thank you. All right, moving along. Any comments, communications from members of the committee from CFAC? Any new news out there, Jeremy?
Well, we did present in front of town council.
Right.
You and I and Jim were there.
Right.
And I think town council had a lot of nice things to say to us, some great questions, but it went well. So Jim really was a guiding sensei in our group, and certainly Chuck was instrumental in it too. So I think from our capital subcommittee, it was a great first rodeo for me, and I am thankful for the guidance of two incredible co-members.
Yeah, and Chuck's name was invoked several times as being one of the brains behind the report.
The brain.
So yes, that was very good. I introduced Jeremy and Jim, but I didn't sit at the table. They did all the heavy lifting and responded to all the questions. And Jeremy, I agree. I thought town council was very engaged and particularly on the subcommittees, the idea of trying to come up with a combined unit that looks after all town facilities, not just schools and separately DPW, because DPW has a lot of expertise that schools could, in theory, make use of. So I thought that was well received. Any other comments from members of the committee? I see Betty, Betty is still on. And Betty, if you're there, do you have any comments from the town council perspective?
No, just from our perspective, I agree with Jeremy. I mean, it was an excellent presentation. And I've always been of the thought that the more analysis you can do, the more questions you can put to us, the more ideas that you can spark, the more valuable the CFAC is. I'm on the committee for committees, and we're going to be looking at all the committees. And I think that this committee really is a model on how to provide value for the town. I mean, you really, I don't know if Mark thinks you add value, but I think you add an enormous amount of value, and I can't say that about all the other committees. So I would say keep it up and do even more analysis, in my estimation, would help us on the town council, because we just don't have the expertise that you do. And when you bring up these ideas, it really helps a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we would say from the committee's vantage point, you know, we are primarily reactive to what town council members want. So to the extent that, you know, during council meetings or in discussions with the internal to the council, if there are items that you want CFAC to look at, you know, please give us a ring, and you know, we'll see if we can marshal the resources to do more analysis, as you say.
No, we could certainly do that, but I'd also, continue to look to you to be proactive, because again, you're down there in the trenches, and we're kind of at a higher level trying to look at a lot of different things. So when you come upon something, as I say, I think this notion of having the DPW help with the school facilities, I think it's a good one, and I'd really like to chase that down. But anything else you come up with, I think it would be very helpful.
So if I could just ask Betty, so on that particular idea, have council members discussed it more? Is there any momentum to look at that idea in more detail?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not in leadership, and I haven't directly asked Chris Clark or Craig Tamish, but I can to see what they took away from that. But I think it's an important thing with the expenses of the schools. It's huge.
Yeah. Well, maybe you could, we'll go to Mark, but maybe you could take it upon yourself to talk with Craig and Chris and let us know at the next meeting what, if anything, we can do to help galvanize the discussion among town council members.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, just to jump in to answer Council Lucky's question about whether or not this committee adds value. I certainly do. And as I've mentioned before in public, that I use this committee really as my sounding board. And most recently example of that is having you involved in reviewing the funding of the CWMP financing model.
Right.
It's something that I brought forward as a suggestion to the town council to get you involved with that. So you can have it, my sounding board, review something that we've created, give us some feedback, and provide us, some ideas. And so that's worked very successfully, I think. And we're due for another update on that. And as we've talked, I'll be providing this committee an update on that model based on the most recent 5-year CIP that's been submitted to us. And I expect it will have you report back to the council again on that update.
So is the timing for that sometime after May 14th, Mark, when the operating budget gets submitted?
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll get through the operating budget, and then that'll be a great project for us to review it once again during that lull for the committee, because you've gotten through your review of the operating and capital budget, and so you could jump into that again right away.
Okay. All right. Well, that's excellent. Anything else, Mark, to communicate from the staff side?
No, that's all we have for now. Thank you.
Okay. Just watch out for bears in upstate New York. Keep the
Bears.
bears up there, by the way. We don't want them down here in Barnstable. All right.
You had a black bear on a Cape one time, right? Remember that?
I don't. When was that?
Oh gosh, I had maybe 10, 15 years ago. We had the
Okay.
camp, everybody was trying to get a picture of it. They think it may have come in on the trash train or something. And it was like a daily media sensation. Where's the black bear today? I think they finally captured it and brought it back off Cape.
Yeah. So looking ahead, our next meeting is 2 weeks from tonight on April 28th. So look forward to seeing you all again there. And remember, we have one vacancy on the committee, and there may be more in the near term. So please, as you in your travels, if you meet somebody who you think might be a good candidate, reach out to them. I've actually sent a couple of emails and made a couple of phone calls. I'm working on a couple of folks that I think might be good for the committee. If we could get a couple more Chris Kings and Tom, sorry, I can't read your last, Tom Keen, get a couple more folks like you, I think we could really add. And Jeremy, if there are any other folks of your quote unquote generation, that you think would be an asset, please reach out to them, market the committee a little bit, because we do need new blood. So with that, any other questions or comments? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Great. All right, Chris Lozon, can you call the roll, please?
Hector,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Lillian,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Chris King,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
Right. Thank you.